I was probably one of the last riders that still used the side-mounted action cam on the helmet. It's gone now, and it took me years to find a proper replacement. So in this video, I'm going to show you what I'm going to do starting as of 2026 for this season. A new upgrade to the camera system, something that you probably have not seen on YouTube yet because I haven't found anything on it. Stay tuned. What's up, my biker friends, and welcome back to another video. Let's talk about camera tech, especially on a motorcycle helmet. If you have followed this channel here for quite some time, you know that I was rocking up until last year a side-mounted camera that was made by Sony. That camera is from 2016, which is ancient to today's standard, but I was still using the camera all the way to the end of 2025. And the reason why I've never upgraded my camera setup is because the tech wasn't quite there. I wasn't happy with the options that were available to upgrade the Sony camera. It still did a good enough job and actually better than anything else I could put on the helmet. But things have changed now. DJI came out with a new product, a couple of new products that started me thinking about a new setup going forward into 2026. And in this video, I'm going to talk to you about what have changed, what I'm going to do for next year, and where the sort of project is at the moment. So before we get into the technical solution of what I'm doing with the setup, what I'm doing with the camera and the audio setup, let's talk about what you are seeing nowadays, what most riders use when they put a camera on the helmet. And I think the most, probably 90% of what people nowadays do is use some kind of a chin mount to the helmet, right? There's different ways to mount your camera to the chin bar. Some helmet manufacturers actually have mounts that you can attach to the helmet and then use it on the chin. The second most, and I think the most prevalent setup a few years ago when sort of I started doing this, was sort of the side mount. Also with GoPro cameras, DJI didn't even have cameras as a DJI. It was GoPro cameras at the time. So you needed sort of lots of sort of attachment points in order to get this GoPro to the side. And then something you see not very often is something that someone mounts the camera on top of the helmet. It kind of looks a little goofy, and also the viewing angle isn't very nice. So let's talk about the pros and cons of those particular setups. Now, if you have the chin bar, the chin mount, it's a pretty easy way to sort of attach the camera. It's easy to do now with the sort of helmet-specific mounts that you can use. It's a simple setup. The issues that you would have is that if you wanted to connect audio back in the days, you needed to wire the audios, you needed adapters to do all this. Things have changed now with DJI allowing sort of wireless microphones to go into the modern cameras, but you still have quite a bit of bulk in front of the helmet. So if you've tried this, and they're not super heavy, but they're heavy enough that kind of it pushes the helmet down a little bit because the weight distribution and the camera is so far forward that it kind of pushes the camera down. That isn't the biggest deal. You can probably live with that. But the big deal that we have if we ride adventure bikes or bikes that have windshields is that the viewing angle is a little lower than eye level. And that means that you capture a better part of the windscreen. Depending on how tall the windscreen is, you get about a third coverage, sometimes even half of the image is covered in a typically pretty dirty windshield. If you have a tinted windshield, it's even worse. So you cover half the image in the worst case scenario when you use a chin mount. That's not the case if you have a sports bike or bike that doesn't have a windshield, but if you're riding a touring bike or a modern adventure bike, you will have some kind of windscreen unless you use a racing screen that's really, really low. But I think for most riders probably watching this, you'll have some sort of windscreen. That's the biggest downside. Now the side mounted, talked about that. You need it if you had a GoPro or some kind of a camera with the standard form factor of a camera. It would kind of stick out far enough. And then the disadvantage here is that you get parts of the helmet into the frame. That isn't great, but the viewing angle is just a little higher. That means it clears most windshields. So if you ride with that setup, you get a pretty good view of the road, depending on how wide you set your settings. It's a much more natural point of view, in my opinion, but with the downside that you get parts of the helmet in there. Now for me, that's why I used the Sony camera for the longest time. The Sony camera has a bit of a camcorder shape, so it's a very sort of slim fit to the helmet. I didn't need lots of attachment points. It was just a double-sided sort of Velcro that I've used, and it worked for the longest time on my helmet. It had other advantages that I'm not going to go into, but those were the setups. So what has changed? What are the tech upgrades or the tech innovations that came out that's changed the setups and how we can run now motovlogging setups on helmets? Well, one of the things that was always an issue with these cameras here, with the standard cameras, is that you needed to wire a microphone into the camera and you needed extra adapters. And it was especially bad with GoPros because it was a huge adapter in order to plug a 3.5mm microphone into the camera. DJI had something a little smaller, but you could not attach the microphone cable straight into the camera, which you could with the Sony. It was one of the advantages that the camera had. Then DJI and others came out with smaller microphones. So you have these like tiny microphones that are now wireless microphones. They're super small, and they connect with most modern cameras. I'm not sure about GoPro, but I definitely know that they work with the DJI cameras. So now you've gone a lot more flexible with microphone positioning. You also didn't need a cable, and it allows for a dual microphone setup. If you watch some of my previous videos, you know that I've used two microphones, one in the helmet and had one in my back pocket of the jacket to record engine sound, and I put them in different channels of the camera so I can mix them later when I would edit the video, so I can have more or less motor sound, and I can sort of clean up the audio track, the voice track a little bit, and get much cleaner results. This is a lot easier now with these. I haven't really used these yet. I bought this with the next camera. And then there's another thing that came out, also a DJI product, which is the Nano camera. So it is sort of a two-piece setup here. And I'm sure you've heard of the Nano, but this is the actual camera module. And then you can connect it to the screen model. The screen is actually on the other side now. You flip it around. So having a small camera like this gives you different options. Now, they're not the first ones to come out with this small model. Actually, the little form factor here that you see, Insta360 had cameras like this, but the optical quality wasn't anywhere close to the action cameras at the time. Roll back the time a little bit more. If you remember the Hero Session cameras that GoPro brought out, so it was a smaller form factor of a camera that I think had only one series of it. Now the game changer with the Nano camera is that it pretty much has the same quality as a larger action cam, and it's much smaller because you can move the screen module and the bigger battery, and it has the same connectivity to the microphone. So you can connect up to two microphones and split the channels, the stereo channels left and right, and have that set up. So the issues with earlier smaller cameras is there was no sound setup possible. You couldn't connect a microphone to it. You couldn't do it with the Hero Session back in the day. You couldn't do it with the Insta360. And now with this DJI camera, you have at least the sound taken care of. Now that leaves just one issue with a small setup. You've got the sound, you got the small module, is the built-in battery that you cannot swap out. That's an issue that I have a solution for, and I'll show that later in the setup. But getting the sound right is one of the key issues why I could start thinking about a different setup. Now, my initial thoughts when I first saw the camera come out, and I didn't know much about it, it was my hope that I could maybe mount it in a way that I could see, the side of the camera. So like, I think in Insta360, you can mount like this in different positions to the helmet. It doesn't work with the DJI camera. So there's no way to put it to the side of the camera here like this. And of course, putting it out like this, gives you the same issues that you had with the GoPros early on, except it's a bit lighter. Then, of course, the chin mount is the other option that is still a fair option if that's something you want to go for. It's much lighter, so it takes care of the issue with the weight distribution. Now with the new super lightweight, I think it's 50 grams lightweight camera, there's an idea that I had a few years back when the first DJI action cameras came out, because they're a bit slimmer than the GoPros, that I could mount the camera onto the sun peak of a helmet. Because if we ride adventure bikes, most of these helmets have the sun peak here, and if you can mount an action camera under the sun peak, you would at least take care of the better angle, not having a low angle and clearing the windshield. But of course, the problem is, as you can see here, it's hard to use it with a visor because now the visor is stuck. You see the setup sometimes with motocross and enduro riders that don't use a visor like what I have here. They just have goggles, and that allows you to use the camera up here. So in rare occasions you see that. And now with the nano camera having the same idea and the same setup to mount the camera under the sun peak, it allows now barely for the visor to close with this helmet. So you can open and close it, it clears it, like I said, barely. So this is the first time I can start looking at a different setup, and it would take care of the issue of having parts of the helmet in view, and it gives you a near point of view. It's a little higher than eye level, but not by much. I've tried the setup out. I actually tried it out with the old DJI Osmo cameras that I had on the helmet. So the angle looks great on camera. I had a bit of test footage there, but it was too bulky and too heavy. Now with the Nano, this is a great setup. The only issue that is left to fix is the fact that there is a built-in battery. The battery, if you, I think, run the camera continuously on 4K, is about an hour of runtime. That's not bad, but if you need more, then you would have to take it off and then charge it in between stops. Or what I thought of initially is like maybe just could get two of these, just two cameras, and swap them out and charge the other one in the back, which makes the setup really expensive. Or use somehow the charging capability, because it connects to the base unit, and obviously it gets charged through the base unit. So if there was a mounting option that would bring in power to the camera, that would be a perfect setup. Now, when I looked at this Nano camera was on the market for 6 weeks. So I didn't think there was anything out there. And you had the magnetic mounts, but they didn't come with a charging option. So I almost discarded this entire setup because I need a bit more runtime out of it, and I didn't really want to swap out the nano cameras. And then Stefan came and said, well, I just looked it up. There's a part that has the magnetic mount, and it allows to attach a USB cable to the mount and charge the camera. That's 6 weeks into being able to buy this camera. So obviously someone has thought of this in China somewhere. I had to buy this from China. Someone thought of it, engineered it, and had it ready for production for me to buy it. It's insane. So anyway, I got two of these, two different manufacturers. This one is the Telesin. So that's the brand name. You may be able to buy it now here because I bought all this last year. And I tried it out. So now you can attach an external battery and extend the runtime. I don't need a whole lot of time. I need about 2 hours, maybe 3 hours in a day is enough because I don't have it running all the time. So I was trying to find the smallest external battery pack that I can get. And I came up with this, it's not very pretty, but it's like a keychain power bank, basically, which sort of sits at the side of it. You see the helmet, sit at the side of the helmet. It's not pretty, but it's all right. Also helps with the weight distribution. This one sits over here, and then the cardio unit goes on this side. So I can barely feel that there is anything on the helmet. And as for the sound, I can use these small microphones. This one has the wind muff on it now, and they have a metal plate and sort of magnets that they come with. So one of the magnets I put into it's hard to see on the camera, but I put it on the inside of the helmet somewhere in here. But this is actually where the Cardo is on the other side. So I have a Cardo microphone in here, and there's another one that sits in here. It's a little magnet. I just glued it on there. And then this takes the microphone. I can put this in, and that's it. It's attached. So you can see that little square in there. That's the microphone that you can attach to it. It sits there pretty solidly. And that microphone battery should last a full day. I forgot what the runtime is, 12 hours, I think, at least, or a little bit more. That should be enough for a full day. So you could technically use both microphones, one in the helmet and the other one you can attach somewhat close to exhaust if you want to pick up some of the exhaust or engine sound. And then you can mix that later in post-production. So that's going to be my setup for 2026. This camera, some kind of an external battery, and in the wireless microphones. And I haven't tested it yet. The few issues that I think I may be seeing when I try to use it now, I'll be flying to Spain here in a couple of days and I can give this a proper test run. The first issue is the angle, right? So the helmet kind of sits like this. So it looks pretty straight from where the camera is mounted. The good thing about the Nano is that the sensor is not a 16:9 sensor, but it's more like a square shaped sensor. So you can actually adjust it to, I think, 4:3 picture setting, which gives you a bit more image on the top and the low end of whatever you record. So later in post-production, if you cut out a 16:9 section of that, you can move the picture up and down a little bit. So you can maybe balance the sort of the tilt of the helmet a little bit. So hopefully that is enough to use it. The other issue I might have is the camera and the microphones. You can set them up that when you push the button, so if you push record here on the camera, that will automatically connect with the microphone. And these things will run in standby for the better part of your riding day, and it should connect all the time. Now, how reliable that is, I don't know yet. I will have to see. But once it connects, the sound quality should be pretty good, especially because you can use the Nano and dial down the microphone gain. Is something I couldn't do on my old camera. So we'll see how reliable this is. I think the connection, once it's connected, will be quite good because it's very close. But just to see if every time I run the camera here, turn it off and on, that it will then connect to the microphone. The next issue that I might be facing with the Nano camera is, even though it's connected to a external battery, I'm not quite sure that when the battery is drained, that it automatically will take power from this external battery pack. Sometimes, if you use the power bank before, sometimes you need to push that button. There's a little button here on this thing. You need to push the button to activate the power bank in order to get the charge down. So it's just something to get used to when when I think I've used up about a good hour of battery time, that I can then turn on so the extra battery pack. So I don't know, but I'll see once I push the button and I don't see the red light that the battery is empty, and then see how much juice I can get out of this battery. So those are issues I'll still have to test. You can, for those guys that use ND filters, there are ND filters that fit on here. I haven't tried that yet as well. I haven't been using ND filters now for the past couple of years, but for those that do want to use ND filters, it should work with ND filters. But yeah, I'm super excited about the setup. It's much smaller. I still have to get used to the way it looks, but I think it's pretty small. I can live with that. And it certainly looks better than having a camera that is chin mounted. Anyway, guys, if you have questions or comments, or think it's a good or bad idea, leave that in the comments section. I'll be curious to hear what you have to say. Maybe you've used a similar setup like this. I just haven't found anything on YouTube, so I thought it'd be worth sharing with you guys. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, ride safe and stay awesome.